When it comes to these disengages, right, we can disengage with a lot of segments, and right now we're working on the disengage with the wrist, okay? The thing to take into consideration is if he is binding with me very weakly and has the gain, meaning he's not pushing against it very much, okay? Then in order to disengage, I have to go down and then make this circular motion, right? Because his sword's not moving, I am the one that has to cover this distance. If he's pushing against my sword harder, I don't need to make a circle anymore because when I leave the bind, his sword will move to the side. So I don't need to go to the side because his covered the distance for me, so I would just go up. So what this looks like is if he is binding strong with me, I am just going to go down and let his sword move to the side and back up. If he is binding with me weakly, I have to go down and around and back. So the stronger you get someone to bind with you, the smaller your disengage should be at the wrist and the less work you have to do. Okay? This also depends on where you're binding in the sword. If you're binding stronger to stronger, you're obviously going to have a bigger and thicker sword to move around. Okay? So I'm seeing you guys struggling just a little bit on knowing how to make it smaller, because I'm seeing a lot of big disengages, right? I don't need to be way over here. If he's weak in the bind, I'm going to bring my tip down and back, and if he's strong in the bind, I'm just going to bring my tip down and then back up again. Okay? Alright, so when it comes to disengaging, if they're weaker in the bind, then my disengage is going to need to be a bigger movement because I have to go down and all the way around, creating this whole U-shape. If they are pushing more against me in the bind, it'll be a smaller motion because when I move my sword down, their sword moves and covers the space for me, and I just need to move mine back up. So the stronger they are in the bind, the smaller your disengage should be. The weaker they are in the bind, the bigger it'll force your disengage to be. So let's refine these disengages, okay? Something that's very important to think about sword fighting is the size of whatever you're trying to move around and how to make it quicker. Most people, when they disengage, they have their true edge to their true edge, and they just move their sword down, and then they have this thickness of the blade that they have to clear before moving their sword back up and turning it. So their disengage cannot be faster than the thickness of their sword. The thicker the sword, the bigger motion you have to do. We want to use the thinness of the sword instead. So what we do is we turn the hand down and go down, and now when I'm going around to this side, I only have to go around as far as my blade is thick. Does that make sense? So if I'm disengaging from strong to strong as well, because it's so thick, about an inch, I have to disengage under about an inch before I can go back up. So when I disengage, what I like to do is I leave from being edge to edge and I turn it to my flat and go down and then go back up on the other side and then turn to my edge. Okay? It's a very small amount of time it saves you, but it is important and it does add up, especially if you have heavier taper swords. Instead of just going here like this, you're going to turn the wrist down, back to this other side, and then turn it up. And it's much faster this way. Okay? So you just turn your wrist down, or in, turn your blade down, turn your wrist in, go down, and then back up. And this is how you get a really, really tight disengage. Okay? The last thing to cover, and then we're going to get into the next class. We'll work out and then we'll eat. One thing that I really like to do is switch my grips. So I might bind with someone in single finger grip, and then when I go to bind with them again, I'll be in thumb grip and then get the quick disengage, okay? Or I might bind with someone in single finger grip and then disengage and make it bigger than when I actually plan on hitting them. We have talked about our assessments where we're lying about how far we can thrust or lying about that we overparry. It's the same with disengage. You can lie to them by making a big disengage, so they're like, oh, this guy's disengages are big, I don't have to worry about it, okay? And like gain and leave the bind to thumb grip, and then have a really small disengage and shoot, okay? That works really, really good. So that's the gist of it for the disengages for now. So some things to note is your grip also affects your disengages. Single finger grip is good for a lot of things. It has decent disengages, okay, but not the best ones. In two finger grip, you'll notice it'll be a little easier and a little more precise on your disengages. Thumb grip, you have the best disengages, okay? With thumb grip, all I have to do is bring my tip down a little and back up. It's very small, okay? So you can be here, tip down, and tip up. If you want, you can turn like this, but in thumb grip, you don't really need to as much. Some things to note is your tip size will also affect your disengaged radius, okay? I just have a big tip because I want to make sure people see when they get thrusted in the face. So I have a big colorful tip. Okay, the smaller tips do hide your disengages and make them a bit smaller, okay? But I like to have a big obvious tip for tournaments so judges can see it and they know the shot was landed, okay? So we're gonna do the drill one more time, but now I want you guys to experiment with the different grips, okay? You'll notice thumb grip has a very good disengage, and so does Tibble grip. The difference between Tibble and thumb grip is how strong you are in the bind. In Tibble, you still have the nimbleness of the thumb grip we were using, but you're stronger in the bind. The direction you're also strong in changes because the direction of that the sword is faced. So in Tibble grip, you're stronger binding on the outside than you are in thumb grip. Thumb grip, you're stronger at binding on the inside. Okay? So let's review the grips real quick. Single finger grip is one finger around the circular part. Two finger grip is two fingers around it. Thumb grip is like hammer grip where you're holding it like a hammer, but you put your thumb on top. Tibble grip is if you're in single finger grip and you spin the sword to your left and then put your thumb on top. Okay? And then you also have pistol grip where you're further back and you just have it on the tip of your finger like this, okay? And you can do this palm down and palm neutral or however, okay? So a couple more drills and then we're gonna start the next class, or we're gonna eat. I'm not sure which one we're doing first.